Hey, this is Tyler White. We're talking today about starting fires with natural materials. One of the most prolific and amazing ways to get a fire quick is to use paper bark birch. Paper bark birch bark. Bam! Say that 5 times fast. So, I have some paper bark from the birch that we are going to start a quick little fire with. I got it back east. There's only here in Utah, I know of 6 total trees that have this. I'm not gonna go pulling the bark off. But back east, a friend of mine stripped some bark off of some trees that they were cutting down anyway and sent it to me. So I'm gonna use this to show you how to start a fire. The reason why I like to do this is because the birch trees in general have a lot of oil inside of them. That makes them an amazing fire starting substance. Now, unfortunately, the majority of this type of birch is going to be at high altitudes and northern latitudes. However, that's a lot of the places that you may need fire fast, especially in an emergency situation, because it's cold. You don't need fire when it's warm. When it gets really cold is when you need to be good at making the fire. So that's why we're going to do this. All right. So I only need a little bit of this. I'm going to use the rest of this bark to make some other stuff. So let me just take a little piece of it off real quick. The other thing is too, with this bark, you're going to see this little fluffy stuff that you can pull off. You can just use that. And if you just pull the fluffy stuff off as opposed to pulling the whole layers off like we've done to this dead tree, then the tree will continue to live. So if you have the ability to just get the small fluffy stuff, do that. Now with this, I'm just going to use a Fero rod. You could use friction fire and put your ember in the powder. You could use flint and steel. There's a bunch of different stuff. But the majority of people that I know have a Fero rod, so we're just going to use that because I think that will help people the most. So the first thing you do is you take the bark, doesn't matter which side that you're going to use, now that I put my knife away, and you just want to scrape this little bitty pile of it up. Okay, I'm going to use the front, you can see it a little bit better. You're basically going to scrape these little chunkies up. When you're trying to start fire, having a lot of surface area is the key. So if I scrape off all these little chunkies here to create more surface area, that will be key in helping the Fero rod that I'm going to use to grab and hold. Think of it like candles. A candle is a bunch of fat with some wick in it. A birch tree is a lot of oil, which is fat, with fibers in it, which is a wick. So a birch tree might as well just be a candle. But you don't just take a lighter to the side of the candle where all the fat is and expect it to burn. You need something to channel it. So by scraping this stuff off, I am channeling with the fibers to the oil so that it will grab and hold and actually ignite. That looks good enough. That's going to work for me for now. And before people freak out too much, this isn't going to hurt your knife. You can sharpen your knife again later. This is just bark. Scraping the bark isn't going to hurt it. You can scrape it on the back. It's totally fine. It's just like cutting through the bark straight. Now, running this Fero rod, what I'm going to do, a lot of people will, they'll use the back of their knife like this, and they'll go boom, and they'll knock all their kindling all over the place. Or they'll use the front of their knife and they'll roll the edge, which just makes me cringe. If you have to use the front of your knife because you've got a coating on the back of it or something, use it at the very, very, very bottom. A lot of them will have a little lip right there. That'll throw a spark really well, and it will damage your blade the least. But again, I say that as an emergency type situation, not something I suggest you do on a regular basis. If you're going to do it on a regular basis, just use the back of your 90-degree spine knife. Now for this, a way to keep from knocking my material all over the place is I have these little teeth in my striker, and the teeth are going to create lands and grooves. I don't know if I don't accidentally make a spark. Those lands and grooves will basically make it so chunks will come off of that ferro rod easier, okay? And then as I set this down on the ground, I'm just gonna scrape it back and forth real fast, and that will keep me from knocking this stuff out of the road. And that's how we get it started, okay? I basically just rub it real quick, get my flame, kind of turn it so it'll keep burning. But once that birch bark is lit, I can transfer this to some nesting material, whatever I want, and continue to make it burn. Now, if you look at this fire, if you look close, you can see how it's a different type of color. And instead of the white smoke that I'm getting from the cambium layer from the cottonwood, this birch, I blew it out. This birch is kind of an oil color, okay? Let me light that again really quick. But I want to show you the black smoke that it makes to show you the oil that's coming out of this. So now if you look, there's a lot of black smoke coming off this birch bark. And that black is all the oil that I was talking about that resides inside of the bark. And that's what makes paperbark birch such an amazing fire starter if you're in a part of the United States that has it. All right, guys, hopefully this is valuable to you as a demonstration on how to use paperbark birch and a ferro rod to start a fire. You don't have to use a ferro rod. You can use flint and steel. You can use a lighter, whatever it was. The key takeaway here is to get paperbark birch, fuzzy it up really, really well so that it will hold that spark. Try not to knock your material away when you do the ferro rod starting process, and then start your fire. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna go throw this in the river now.